Welcome in my new video. Not for video. My videos are fact-based, made for curious minds and knowledge lovers. If you spot any mistakes, please comment. It helps me improve and keeps the facts accurate. Some may love cinematic visuals, but my focus is purely educational and informative. Don't forget to subscribe my channel. Let's dive into the video. You've probably said it 100 times, right? Maybe after a surprisingly easy exam or finishing a project way ahead of schedule. It was a piece of cake. We use it for anything that feels effortless, a task that requires almost no real struggle. It's a pleasant, satisfying little phrase that makes you think of a sweet reward. The task wasn't just doable, it was enjoyable, as easy as eating dessert. It's an everyday idiom, baked right into our language, something we say without a second thought. But language is like a living museum. It holds stories we've long forgotten, and sometimes, the most innocent-sounding phrases carry the heaviest histories. The words we use are artifacts, and if you look closely, you'll find they are rarely as simple as they seem. We think we know what we're saying. We assume piece of cake just means, well, that cake is easy to eat. But what if I told you that couldn't be further from the truth? What if winning the original piece of cake meant you had to be a master of performance, a skilled dancer, and an expert in the art of secret ridicule? You've probably said it 100 times, it was a piece of cake, but what if that simple phrase has a history rooted in mockery, slavery, and a prize that was anything but easy to win? The story of the cakewalk is one you won't believe, and it will change the way you hear that phrase forever. The stage of mockery, the plantation cakewalk. To find the origin of this phrase, we have to go back to one of the darkest chapters in American history, the pre-Civil War South, on the plantations where millions of black people were enslaved. In this brutal system, where every aspect of life was controlled, enslaved communities carved out their own cultural spaces, often right under the noses of their captors. On Sundays, during rare moments of reprieve, they would hold what were originally called prize walks. Imagine a yard swept clean, benches set up, the air filled with banjo music. Enslaved men and women would dress in their absolute finest, often the hand-me-down formalwear of their enslavers. The men might be in long, split-tailed coats and high hats, some carrying walking sticks. The women would wear long, ruffled dresses, mimicking the grand attire of the plantation mistresses. From the outside, it looked like a formal dance competition. Couples would line up and promenade, taking turns to strut down an aisle. They were judged, and the winning couple, the one deemed the most stylish, was awarded a prize. That prize was often a large, elaborately decorated cake. And so, the prize walk became known as the cakewalk. This is also likely where we get the phrase, that takes the cake, meaning to win the highest honor. But this was no simple walk. And it definitely wasn't just an imitation of white culture. It was a deeply satirical performance. An act of covert resistance. The enslaved dancers were parodying the stiff, grandiose, and, to them, absurdly formal manners of the white Southern elite in the big house. An ex-slave, interviewed in 1901, recalled watching the parties. Us slaves watched white folks' parties where the guests danced a minuet and then paraded in a grand march. Then we'd do it too, but we used to mock every step. They copied the formal bows and pompous struts, but they exaggerated everything. They added their own flair, high kicks, twists, and fluid movements from African dance traditions, creating a brilliant fusion of mockery and cultural expression. The dance was known for a high leg prance with a backward tilt of the head, shoulders and upper torso. Dancers would lean way back, arch their backs, and put on airs, performing with a proud, jaunty swing that was a world away from the rigid waltzes of their enslavers. It was a public display of ridicule performed right in front of the oppressors. And the most stunning part of this covert rebellion, the white slave owners, who often served as judges, completely missed the point. They saw the cakewalk not as mockery, but as a quaint and charming attempt by their slaves to imitate the refined culture. They were so entertained that they actively encouraged it and presented the prize cake themselves, blissfully unaware they were applauding a parody of their own behavior. So, the very first cakewalk was, in fact, incredibly difficult. It required immense skill, grace, and nerve. The best dancers had to make their complex, improvised steps look effortless while concealing their fatigue and performing with a joyous face, all while engaged in a dangerous act of subversion. Winning that cake wasn't easy. It was a triumph of artistry and a testament to the resilience of a people who found a way to assert their humanity in a system designed to crush their spirit. From the plantation to the stage, the evolution of the cakewalk after the Civil War and emancipation, the cakewalk didn't just fade away. Instead, it exploded out of the confines of the plantation and onto the American stage. But its journey twisted its meaning into something almost unrecognizable. The dance first got national attention at the 1876 Centennial Exposition in Philadelphia. But its massive popularity came through one of the most painful forms of American entertainment, the minstrel show. Minstrel shows, based on gross and dehumanizing stereotypes of black Americans, were already wildly popular with white audiences. By the 1870s, the cakewalk became a staple of these shows. But here, the original meaning was completely inverted. What was once a subtle mockery of white culture by black people was now a grotesque parody of black people by white performers in blackface. The joke was no longer on the masters, it was on the caricatured black figures on stage. This created a deeply complicated cultural loop. As historian Terry Waldo described it, you had blacks imitating whites who were imitating blacks who were imitating whites. In another twist, black performers, seeking any opportunity in the entertainment world, also began performing the cakewalk in minstrel shows, sometimes in blackface themselves, performing a distorted version of their own cultural creation. Despite this painful appropriation, the cakewalk kept evolving. In the 1890s, it hit Broadway. The 1893 production The Creole Show was revolutionary, featuring a black cast and a chorus line of 16 women. The dance duo of Dora Dean and Charles E. Johnson became a sensation with their cakewalk specialty. The inclusion of women on stage transformed the dance from a simple promenade into a dynamic performance that took the country by storm. By 1892, national cakewalk championships were being held at Madison Square Garden. The dance even went international, with performers becoming stars across Europe in the early 1900s. Musically, the cakewalk was also laying the foundation for a new American sound. Written in a syncopated two-quarters time, its lively, march-like rhythm was a departure from the square hymns common in Anglo-American music. That syncopation, placing emphasis on unexpected beats, was a direct precursor to ragtime. The two styles were so intertwined that early rags were often labeled as cakewalks and vice versa. Scott Joplin, the king of ragtime, even referenced it in his 1906 tune, The Ragtime Dance, with the lyric, "Let me see you do the ragtime dance, turn left and do the cakewalk prance." The cakewalk was the bridge that introduced African American rhythmic ideas to the mainstream, paving the way for ragtime and, eventually, jazz. The birth of a phrase, a piece of cake, so we have the cakewalk, a dance of immense cultural significance. But how did we get from that to the simple phrase, a piece of cake, meaning something is easy? This is where the historical trail gets a little murky. The common theory directly links the phrase to the dance. The idea is that for the most skilled performers, the physically demanding steps of the cakewalk looked graceful and effortless. They made it look easy. So, winning the prize, taking the cake, was a cakewalk for them. And we have proof of this. The term cakewalk, meaning an easy victory, shows up in American slang in the 1890s. Over time, this may have morphed into a piece of cake, referring to the prize itself. It's a compelling story, but there's a problem: the paper trail for the exact phrase is thin. The first known appearance of a piece of cake in print doesn't show up until 1936, in the British edition of a book of poems by American writer Ogden Nash. The line reads, "Her picture's in the papers now, and life's a piece of cake." Funnily enough, the original American version used different slang, and everything is Jake. Jake meant fine, but it confused British readers, so the publisher swapped it for a piece of cake, which suggests the phrase was already in use in Britain. This is where the direct line from the American cakewalk starts to wobble. If the phrase was common in Britain in the 1930s, could it really have come from southern plantations? Skeptics point out that the British Royal Air Force, RAF, widely used a piece of cake during World War II to describe an easy mission, which helped popularize it globally. But we don't know for sure where the RAF got it. There are other theories. The English language already had easy as pie. It's possible a piece of cake just evolved along similar lines. After all, eating dessert is a universally easy activity. Some linguists believe that when we can't find a definitive origin for a phrase, we tend to create one that feels right, a phenomenon called folk etymology. The story of the cakewalk is so powerful that it has become the dominant explanation, even without a clear, unbroken chain of evidence. So what's the truth? We may never know for certain. But what is undeniable is that the word cakewalk itself, meaning an easy win, comes directly from those contests. And its history is forever tied to that prize, a piece of cake. So, the next time you say something was a piece of cake, remember the journey that phrase represents. It's a story that starts with an act of defiant, joyful mockery in the face of brutal oppression. It's the story of enslaved people who used their artistry to ridicule their captors so brilliantly that their enslavers applauded them for it. It's a story of how that dance was twisted by minstrelsy, yet became the rhythmic seed of ragtime and jazz, fundamentally shaping American music. And finally, it's a story about how language works, how meanings shift, and how everyday words can carry hidden layers of struggle, resilience, and triumph. The truth behind a piece of cake is far from simple. It's a story of resistance baked into an idiom of ease. It reminds us that history isn't just in textbooks, it's on our tongues, in the words we use every single day. The meaning may have changed, but the echo of the banjo and the defiant high step remains, if you just know where to listen. What do you think? Does knowing the history of this phrase change how you see it? And are there other common phrases with hidden histories you've always been curious about? Let me know down in the comments. I try to read every single one. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, do me a favor and hit that like button. And if you want to uncover more dark truths behind the everyday things we say and do, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.